I have a cave. Obviously, I do not need iPads in the cave. But if you're in a room or in a hotel, or you're trying to meditate somewhere where there's lots of noise, iPads work very well. And the second sense, which is difficult to calm down, is sound. And as somebody, because I live in Western Australia, and Western Australia, there's many mines. And in those mines underground, the noise can be deafening. I mean, give you real harm, physical harm. So they have developed these little ear plugs. These earplugs actually molded into the shape of your ear. You can obtain these from audiologists. That's what they're called, audiology. And you put them in your ear, well, first of all, it's molded to get the shape of your ear, and both ears are different. And then they're molded and they're given to you, and you put them in your ear because they're the shape of your ear cavity. You don't feel them when they're inside. And the first time I used my little earplugs was when I was on Singapore Airlines going to Singapore to give some talks, because there's always a lot of noise on aircraft, and I put those in so I could meditate. So I put them in my ears, and I must confess to you that when I put them in, I fell asleep. And when I came out of that 10 minutes sleep, I went to the toilet. And as I was walking down the aisle to go to the toilet, I was really surprised. I said, wow, this aircraft is so quiet and silent. And I realized it's because I hadn't taken the earplugs out. They were so comfortable for me that I never realized they were in there. And often in my life, if I'm going to noisy places and I want to meditate, I often put those little earplugs in because they keep the sound down. Now, you may think that that's just ordinary stuff, but it really does help to try and make you as comfortable as possible. And also to find a nice place to sit, a nice posture. You don't have to sit cross-legged in full lotus on broken glass. A place where you feel comfortable, your body can be relaxed and become at ease. So the physical sense, the fifth sense of feeling, can be subdued. So this is the wider interpretation of those words in Anapanasati, to go to a quiet, secluded place and to sit down comfortably with straight back. If you're a modern person who's had back injuries, you try and sit cross-legged on the floor with a straight back, and you won't have any peace in your meditation at all. There'll be too much pain. And as many people have heard me say this before, know the Buddha taught Anapanasati. Pana means breath. The Buddha never ever taught Anapanasati, mindfulness of pain. If pain comes, fine, but you don't go looking for it or focusing on it. Anapanasati, on the breath. So we sit comfortably, and you've heard me teach the guided meditations. That comfortable meditation position is, again, very important. Over the years, the body becomes comfortable anyway. We want to be able to make sure that comfort is there. That becomes the first instruction of the Buddha in Anapanasati. Okay, I've lost the page there. But nevertheless, once the body is comfortable, then we make the arising of mindfulness the most important. Not creating mindfulness in front of you, but making mindfulness the most important thing. And of course, I've described what mindfulness is. And that mindfulness, which we teach, you generate, you cultivate, after a while you realize how to become aware. And that ordinary mindfulness, the general mindfulness, that when it is cultivated and developed, you find that you do become more aware of even ordinary things. You can feel more, you can smell more, you can taste more, you can see more deeply into things. And part of that mindfulness is also enhanced by stillness, going slowly, not moving fast. because you can understand that when you see things and they're moving past you quickly, your senses do not have enough time to understand them properly. When you slow down, you can see more detail. And the story I often give was walking up the hill where my monastery is, 2 and a bit kilometers. And when I walked up that hill for the first time after 7 years of living in that monastery, people always wanted to get me to go in their car. I said, a beautiful morning, I've got plenty of time, I'm going to walk. When I walked up that hill, I could not recognize it. It looked totally different than what I remember observing through the window of a car going at 60 or 80 kilometers an hour. And that surprised me. I slowed down and the hill looked even more detailed and more beautiful. I stopped after a while. I stopped and stared. And when I stared at that hillside, the beauty was enhanced even more. And I started to see things in that hillside which I've never ever seen before. Little rocks and the little stream at the bottom of the valley. I saw things which I'd never noticed through the window of a traveling car. And once what I saw was more beautiful. And of course, after you have strange experiences, I've been taught by people like Ajahn, I was also taught this when I was a scientist. If you see anything happening which is strange, examine it. Why? Ask that question. And of course, the solution came up, which many of you may have heard before, that when the light hits the back of your eye, your retina, it causes a chemical reaction, and that goes through some stimulation of your optic nerve into your brain, and then you see something. But if that happens too fast, first of all, the chemical reaction on the back of your eye has got no time to finish, to complete. You only see a watercolor, a washed out approximation of what's out there when you see through the window of a car. But when you start walking slowly, your retina has more time to see more fully. The colors are more fully formed, and there's far more detail. But then nothing surpassed just standing there perfectly still and allowing the eye all the time it needed to finish the image making of that hillside, and for all the little detail to emerge, and for my mind to have the time to explore. And that became a wonderful metaphor for meditation. As you're sitting down, meditating in a room with your eyes closed, when you are establishing mindfulness, just being still and just watching, feeling, observing, not fantasizing or thinking or planning, but just like the body is still, try and keep the mind as still as possible. And when you do things like that, you find your mindfulness increases in power. Just like I said, with the enhanced perception this morning, the enhanced perception of like hermits, they go so slowly because they don't need to rush, that they see much more and they feel more deeply. And what they feel and see is more beautiful. So you can see that for yourself in your life. There are times it may be the street where your house or apartment is. And sometimes instead of getting in your car, you just walk. When you walk, you see so much more. When you go slowly, you can see great detail. That is what mindfulness is all about. Being able to go slow enough and get this perception enhanced so that you can see much more of what's really going on. And so, once we have that mindfulness strengthened, established enough, then you can start watching your breathing. The way I encourage meditators to establish mindfulness, this is my preferred way, there's many other preferred ways. So that's by watching your body first of all. When you're aware of the feelings in the body and you're kind to them, that by itself stops you thinking. It stops a lot of thinking and becomes you aware of the physical sensations. I've noticed the most physical sensations in my body I don't have a word for, that I haven't developed a vocabulary to distinguish one form of relaxation or pain or irritation from another. So I can't think too much about it. It calms my thoughts down when I watch my body. But once the body is relaxed, then I go to this peaceometer, just to relax my mind. Because once the mind is reasonably peaceful, you find you do have the mindfulness. And then you can go and invite the breath into your mind. And I say these words carefully, to invite the breath in, not to grab the breath and bring it in. Invite it in. In other words, do it very gently. And if the mind is not ready to watch the breath, then go back to the peaceometer, or go back to contemplating some wonderful dhammas you've done, or other ways of meditating. But you find after a while, you get to know the degree of mindfulness you need in order to be able to watch the breath very easily. And if you don't even invite the breath in, sometimes the breath comes in by itself. And that's my way of meditating for so many years now. I look at that peaceometer, calm it down, and when it's ready, the breath comes to me. I never invite it in, because if I go in, I don't invite it in, but you can invite it in. But when you do invite it in, you find it's never as comfortable as when it comes in by itself. If a person tries to watch the breath, if you try and watch your breath now, you'll find you can watch your breathing, the breath in and breath out, but it's never smooth and easy and comfortable. Whatever you do, you tend to interfere with it. But if you allow your mind to become peaceful first, when something like the breathing experience comes up, it is very comfortable, which means you can stay with it for a long time without any problem. And that does become the Buddha's first and second of the breath meditation. When the in-breath and out-breath are long, you're aware that they are long. In-breath and out-breath are short, you're aware that they are short. Now you don't have to just do a long breath and then a short breath, or a short breath and a long breath. Some people do this. You can if you want, it's no harm, but the whole purpose is that when you are breathing, to make it more interesting, you find you can feel what is a long breath and what is a short breath. And being a bit of a rebel, when I first heard this and started meditating, I found that my breath was neither long nor was it short. It was sort of in between. Now what should I do? And of course, it doesn't really matter. A long breath or a short breath or in between breath, you just know something more about the breath, such as its length. If you don't get interested in the length of the breath, you can make other little additions to watching the breath, which makes it easier to watch. In the Thai forest tradition, I was taught when the breath comes in, you say to yourself the simple word bud, and as breath goes out, you say to to yourself. Bud ho, with the breath. Even though I was a very sincere and devout Buddhist, it didn't really work much for me. But I saw many Thai people who have been brought up, immersed in Buddhism since the time they came out of their mother's womb. And for them, the word Buddha was something very special, holy, sacred. And so when they said the word Buddha to themselves, with the breath going in and breath going out, that had great emotional force. So when I came to Australia and started teaching breath meditation, are you breathing in? Just recite to yourself, Bud, breathe out, though. It didn't work at all, not with Australians. So I tried many other sort of what we call mantras to say along with the breath. One of the first ones I tried, because I know that many Australians thought too much, was to ask them, as the breath goes in, say to yourself, shut. As the breath goes out, up. Shut up. Shut up. It was sort of funny, but it didn't do very much for people, other than make them laugh. But instead of that, the best one which I have used when teaching this part of the meditation is as you're breathing in, just breathe in, say to yourself, breathing in peace. As you breathe out, let go. Breathing in peace. Breathe out, let go. Breathing in peace. Breathe out, let go. The important thing is that when you do this mantra, you don't just say the word, that you feel its meaning. What is peace for you? How much do you know peace? What does it feel like to you? What is the emotion of peace like? And it's as if, as you're breathing in, you're not just breathing in the air from the room, you're breathing in peace as well. Breathing in peace. And you breathe out, let go. And it's not just a word, let go. Whatever you wish, require to let go of. It could be tiredness, it could be illness in the body, it could be fears, anxiety, problems in your life. You imagine those, just use visualization, leaving you through your nostrils as the air goes out. Breathing in peace. You can also say breathing in health. If people are sickly and some disease or other, as you're watching your breath, breathe in health, energy, purity. Breathe out sickness. This is the same as breathing in, watching a long breath or watching a short breath. It is adding something extra to the breathing to make it more interesting and easy for you to observe. And there's many other mantras which are used. We call them mantras. These are little words one says to oneself. Yes, it is thinking, but it is very refined, repetitive thinking. It doesn't disturb you as much as if you're thinking about what you're going to have for dinner tonight. Breathing in peace, breathing out, let go. And I found that being very useful for people. And as you do this, your mind does relax. Of course it does. For two reasons. One is that you're doing something very, very simple. You're not activating the mind. You're calming it down just by doing this simple. The second thing is because it's repetitive. Do it again and again and again. You do calm down, calm down, calm down. Breathing in peace, breathing out, let go. And it happens quite naturally that you get to the stage your awareness builds. When it's not distracted, it doesn't waste energy. The mindfulness builds. And going back to that simile of watching that hillside, when I stood still, I saw more. More of the hillside became clear to me. When you do this meditation on the breath, more of the breath becomes evident to you. You experience more of it. And little by little, you begin to experience the whole of the breath, from beginning to end. I will now give you an example. I'm just going to use my hand, going from the left, that's on the screen, the left to the right. Going forward, backward, in, out, in, out. But as you slow down, you can start to see the breath going to the left, slowly. See every part of the hand moving to the left. You see the period it stops, and then it goes to the right of the screen. You see all parts of just one in-breath and one out-breath happening naturally. When that experience happens, you are getting very calm and very peaceful because you can see much more. And the strange thing is about this part of the meditation is that there's so much to see. As you become more aware, your mindfulness increases, you see that just one in-breath has so many parts, hundreds of parts, thousands of parts. And you never find two in-breaths ever are the same. Weird, it's just in-breath, out-breath, in-breath, out-breath. No. Many people may look the same to you. You look at them more closely and you see they have many differences. You may see identical twins. You may think they're the same, but their mother knows their differences because they look to them much longer, much deeper. You see much more of your breathing. And you become even more mindful because you're looking at a simple thing with much more power. It happens naturally. And the fourth part of Anapanasati is that, I'll turn over my page, is you calm down what they call the Kaya Sankara. This is the calming down again the breath. The calming the breath down happens again naturally. These aren't stages which you do. These are stages which happen. The first stage is, yes, you may say, you put a little bit of focus in that, inclining your mind towards these things. But when somebody asked me, and I mentioned it was a good question about meditation, how do you calm your breath down? You don't calm the breath down, you don't do it. You keep out of the way, just observing, watching, and it calms down by itself when you stop interfering with it. I can't do this exercise so clearly, but you've all seen it before, so I'll just do it very quickly. When I hold a cup up and ask somebody, is the water in my cup moving? They say, yes, it is. How can I keep the water in my cup perfectly still? And I focus on it, I'm mindful of it, but the water in my cup is always moving when I'm holding it. The only way to get the water to be perfectly still is to put it down. You put it down, leave it alone, and it becomes still all by itself. Now, many of you have seen me do that before, so I'm not going to dwell on it, but that's a wonderful simile to how you calm your breath down. You leave it alone. You just watch it and don't interfere. Now, those become the first four parts of Anapanasati as taught by the Buddha in the suttas. And sometimes I thought, why the breath? And it's because a lot of the time when I would meditate, it happened by itself naturally. Simply because when the whole five senses in the body start to calm down, you close your eyes, you can't see anything. You're not much noise around, you can't hear anything. You can't smell, you can't taste, and the body is comfortable. The only things to watch are your thoughts and fantasies, but you calm those down. And then you feel the breath. It's the only thing left moving. And I still recall the example of friends who went into these sensory deprivation chambers, flotation tanks. And when they did that, they couldn't see anything because it was dark. It was soundproof. And they were floating in salt water. So they didn't feel any pressure on any parts of their body. And there was no smell or taste. So the five senses were just not excited at all. And I asked them, what was it like floating in a sensory deprivation chamber? And they said that what they heard most of all was the sound of their breathing, which was so loud. That was coming from inside. And that's something they could not sort of turn off that easily. So it is nature that as you calm down, you become aware of your breath. And as you do calm down more and more and more, you get to the fifth stage of Anapanasati. And as I've consistently said for so many years, this is the interesting part of the breath meditation. This is where it gets very much fun. And I call it a pivot point of meditation. Because once meditators get to what I call the delightful breath, then everything else tends to sort of fall into place. And you go deeper into the meditation because you really enjoy it. And so many times when I would do residential retreats, you'd find that meditators were sitting down there for an hour, and it was lunchtime, and they knew at this stage of meditation, you're still aware of the outside sound especially. They knew it was lunchtime. They would prefer to sit down and carry on meditating, because the delight of their meditation, the delightful breath, was more valuable to them than having lunch. And they knew there was an 8-precept retreat. If they missed lunch, they would not eat until the following morning. And they were quite willing to do that. That's how much joy this breath can give you. And this is what happens in the 5th stage of meditation. When you learn to experience joy as you breathe in and out, when you learn to experience pleasure, sukha, as you breathe in and out, this is a natural occurrence. When the happiness starts to arise in the meditation, you're surprised. How can the breath appear so joyful? And this is explained in the next 2 stages, the 7th and 8th. When you learn to experience the mental formation as you breathe in and out of piti sukha, of happiness and joy, and when you learn to calm this mental formation as you breathe in and out, that's the 5th and 6th stage. So this 7th and 8th stages of Anapanasati. The Buddha is explaining here that this delight you feel along with the breath is what he called a chitta sankhara. It comes from your mind, not from your body. To explain it more in detail, that it's like that you're seeing the breath through a different sense door. Instead of experiencing it as you normally do, mostly through the 5th sense door as a physical touch, now you're experiencing a lot of that breath through the mind. It's how the mind experiences the breath. That is where the piti sukha comes from. It's a chitta sankhara. You're turning on the mind, and you are softening the sense of physical touch. The mind is waking up and getting strong. In life, we do have 6 senses, but the 5 senses, they take most of our attention and are the strongest. We spend most of our day, most of our life, watching the 5 senses. And the 6th sense, we hardly notice at all. And I use a simile, a very simple simile. This hand, what you think is my right hand, it's actually my left hand, but on the screen it looks like it's the right hand. This hand is the 5 senses. They are just such great amplitude. This hand over here is the mind. It's very, 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 very soft. But as we meditate, we calm the senses, closing our eyes, not listening, and not feeling the body, not smelling, not tasting, and not thinking about the 5 senses. And as the physical 5 senses begin to go very soft, the energy goes into the mind, and the mind becomes stronger. Its amplitude increases as the 5 senses go down. As the mind gets turned on, you find that the breath becomes more easy to watch and more delightful, because the joy makes anything easy to observe. You always tend to like watching things which are pleasurable, and the breath appears as pleasurable in this case. So you are the 6th stage, the 7th stage of Anapanasati. When you learn to experience the mental formation of piti sukha as you breathe in and out, as you learn to calm that mental sensation, make it more stable, more soft, then that piti sukha becomes so easy to observe. You're watching with a lot of joy. Even though you calm it, you stabilize it, I think would be a better word. That piti sukha, the joy when you're watching the breath, becomes incredibly strong. You're having a great time, which is why you don't really want to go to lunch. And then what happens next as you go in? That's also why in the Satipatthana Sutta, what is it here? I'll read it out, what the Buddha said. On all those occasions when you're experiencing the breath with joy and happiness, and you are experiencing the whole of the mental formation of the joy and happiness, and you're calming it. On those occasions, you're mindful of Vedana, experience, the second Satipatthana. Having restrained the 5 hindrances, energized, fully aware the purpose and mindful, while being mindful of the pleasure associated with this stage of breath meditation is being mindful of experience. That is why on that occasion, the meditator abides mindful of experience, having restrained the 5 hindrances, energized, fully aware of the purpose and mindful. You're fulfilling the second stage, understanding experience. And when you go to the next stage of meditation, this is when it gets to what we call deep meditation, but many people experience this. When you learn to experience a citta, as the Buddha said, this is number 9 stage of Anapanasati, as you breathe in and out. Number 10, when you brighten that nimitta, the word is abhipamojiyang tangchitang, bring joy to the citta as you breathe in and out. When you learn to settle the nimitta as you breathe in and out, abhipamojiyang chitang. And when you learn to enter jhana, so samadhahang chitang was the one before, sorry. Samadhahang chitang, when you settle the nimitta, you make it still as you breathe in and out. And when you learn to enter jhana, liberate the citta vimochayang, as you breathe in and out. These become the very powerful stages of Anapanasati. Having started to bring joy and happiness with the breathing in and out, turning on the citta sankhara, it becomes so strong that it dominates. This is a natural phenomena, and you're not really aware of the breath as much as you're aware of the joy and happiness. And that joy and happiness becomes, again, so strong. For most people, it appears as a light in the mind, images in the mind. You're fully awake, you're not dreaming, but these become similar to those very clear, lucid dreams which one has. And as that nimitta becomes stable, so I should have said abhipamojiyang first of all, joyful, you brighten it up, you see the most beautiful part in it. Skillful ways of doing that are whatever you see in your mind, first of all, you don't doubt it, it's real. And you see a light in the mind. I don't know how many meditators, they see a light in the mind, they come to me and say, no, it couldn't have been. And I give them those ear pads and say, look, it can't be anything else. You put an eye shade on, put an eye shade and eye pads on your eyes. You can't be seeing anything. This is real. And when they start to see these things and experience them, they're very delightful, very beautiful. And little by little we learn how to make peace and let these nimittas be. And they get stronger just by, again, you putting things down, you're not doing anything with them. They get stronger and more powerful. And it becomes a task to settle them. If you see any sort of nimitta, any sort of light in the mind, please realize this is good meditation. And if it is not that bright yet, you can always do this wonderful positive imagery of looking for the most beautiful part of that image in your mind. There's always one part which is more beautiful, more bright than the other. You focus on that. You zoom in on it. And as you zoom in on it, that brighter, more beautiful part takes up more space in your mind. And you zoom in on the most beautiful part of the most beautiful part. You keep doing that, and soon you have these gorgeous, very bright nimittas. One of the similes from my own experience is seeing sort of like a forest, a beautiful forest with a lake, and realizing that the thing which was standing out was a little dewdrop on the end of a leaf. It caught the sun, it was sparkled. And my mind, because it's been well trained, just zoomed in on that sparkle. And as you zoomed in on sparkle, that sparkle got brighter and bigger. And that all I was watching after a while was the sparkle, which became a beautiful white nimitta in the mind. If there's any dirty parts of that beautiful nimitta, you go into the good parts, not the dirty parts. Which means that soon your mind becomes full of this beautiful light. It doesn't have to be white, blue nimittas, red nimittas. It doesn't matter. But one of the key signs of these nimittas, the citta, this stage of meditation, is that they're beautiful. And they are of colors you don't see in the real world. More green than green, more yellow than any yellow you will see painted on a car or on a piece of paper, more yellow than you can see in the real world. It's like what the color for your eyes promises. The nimittas take further and fulfill. Deepest blue you've ever experienced in your whole life. And of course, that catches your attention very easily. It's some of the problems of nimittas you read about in the Upakalesa Sutta. And in that Upakalesa Sutta, many times I've argued with Bhikkhu Bodhi, please, when you use the word that object in his translation, which you see in your books, that object refers to the nimitta, and it's in a footnote. And so if he had actually put in the Pali word there, the nimitta, you'd see that the Buddha had a whole sutta on nimittas and their problems. But the main problems of nimittas is the excitement you get. These are powerful states of mind. It's so beautiful. The other problem is, again, fear. And many times when you see these nimittas, it's like looking at the sun without any sunglasses. And it's so bright and so beautiful. And sometimes you have fear, this is too much for me, I can't take this, I'm going to go blind. It's too pleasurable even. But you don't go blind. And it's so pleasurable, and it's supposed to be, and that's supposed to take you deeper into the high ecstasy states of the jhanas. This is what is supposed to happen. So don't be afraid, and don't be excited. You can leave the excitement and the celebrations till afterwards. But now you experience these powerful states of mind, the nimittas. And as you brighten that nimitta, or allow it to get stronger, and as you settle that nimitta, you don't interfere with it, let it be. It becomes incredibly powerful and still. The simile which Ajahn Chah used to give us, which I'm going to repeat now, because he was what we call like a forest monk, very often in those days you'd go walking in the jungles. And he told me, I went walking in the jungles as well when there were still jungles to walk in. And sometimes you'd be walking there and you'd always try and make it to a river, a well, or a lake of water in the mid-afternoon. You need to wash, and maybe wash a few robes and fill up your water container to drink. And then you set up your mosquito net umbrella and sit underneath it in the evening. And you'd always put your mosquito net umbrella 10 meters, maybe 20 meters at most away from the water's edge, because you knew when the sun went down, the animals would come to that water to drink. And Ajahn Chah would describe what happened. Sometimes he'd keep his eyes open in the evening when the jungle animals would come out with their young to bathe, to cool themselves off, and to play in the water. And it's fascinating. These were obviously the days before Nature Channel or National Geographic. And anyway, monks didn't have TVs. And he would delight in the antics of wild animals. But they'd only come out and play if they didn't see that he was there. The animals would come out and sniff. Their eyes weren't that good. They'd come out and sniff and listen And if Ajahn Chah moved, made any noise, then they would know there was a person there, a human being. And all the animals, whether it was elephants or tigers, were more afraid of humans than humans were of those animals. So Ajahn Chah would sometimes sit perfectly still, so motionless that those animals wouldn't know that Ajahn Chah was there. They'd come out and sniff, listen, and thinking that no one was looking at them, they come out with their young to drink and play in a still forest pool. And sometimes Ajahn Chah said, and this was the cherry on top of his story, the most delicious, wonderful part of it. He said sometimes he was so still, sitting under his mosquito net, close to the forest pool, that animals he'd never seen before came out to play in the water. These were so sensitive and shy that very rarely would they come out when someone was watching. But Ajahn Chah knew how to be totally still, with his eyes open. And he said he saw animals which his parents, his friends, and his teachers never described to him. He never knew that such beautiful animals existed. And he could see them play in the still forest pool. Those represented the jhanas. What happens next if you can maintain that stillness? So what you're experiencing doesn't know that you're watching. There's a wonderful metaphor which helped me a lot when you see these beautiful lights come up in the mind. The citta, which is number 9, stage 9 of the Anapanasati. And you brighten it up, which is stage 10. And how you keep that calmness for stage 11. So the stage 12 of Anapanasati, liberating the mind. And because, and I learnt my Pali, liberating the mind, I use the Pali word vimochayang. It comes from the noun vimocha. And whenever the Buddha mentioned vimocha, the freedoms of the mind, it would always refer to the jhanas. And this is what happens next. The experience of jhana is stage 12 of Anapanasati. And you find you started with just watching the breath go in and out, or breathing in peace, breathing out, let go. And you get these incredible, powerful states of mind called nimittas. And you go into the jhanas from them. And wow, that's just exactly how the Buddha taught. And they are life-changing. I already mentioned to you that story of that young 13, 14-year-old Sri Lankan girl who had a deformed back. And when she got her blue nimitta, not jhanas yet, but blue nimitta, that allowed her to imagine her deformed spine inside that nimitta and straighten it up. It's incredible what you can do with that powerful mind states. And when you do get those powerful mind states, and there's no reason why anybody on this retreat can't attain those things, but if you want them, you disturb the mind too much. Just follow the instructions. And if you follow the instructions, many of the disciples which I teach do experience those things. At least nimittas. Jhanas are a little bit more difficult, but nimittas, if a 14-year-old girl can do that, 13-year-old girl, whatever, then why can't you? So anyway, those are possible. And so that becomes the 12th stage of Anapanasati. And what did the Buddha say here? On those occasions you are mindful of, on those occasions you are mindful of the citta. This is what the citta is, the nimittas and the jhanas. This is where the 5 senses have disappeared. And when the 5 senses have disappeared, they reveal the 6th sense, the mind, the citta. So in this occasion, you really can see the citta. This is supposed to be the third satipatthana. You are mindful of the citta, having restrained the 5 hindrances, energized, fully aware of the purpose of mindfulness. I do not say that there is the development of mindfulness of breathing of one who is dull and not fully aware, reaching jhana with the hindrances gone. That is why on that occasion a meditator abides mindful of the citta, having the mind, having restrained the 5 hindrances, energized, fully aware of the purpose and mindful. On these stages, you are extremely mindful. You're not dull at all. It's like, you've woken up. It's very hard to give similes for these experiences. It's like you've had a super strong coffee, so you're fully awake, but you're not agitated. So all that energy is there, but it's not out of control. I use that word very carefully. It's poised, it's focused, it's not moving, but huge energies. And that's what happens in the nimitta stage and to enter the jhanas. In those jhana states, the Buddha never mentions them in this sutta, but they're mentioned in so many other suttas. These are stages of the mind being dominant, and you cannot hear any sound, see anything, smell, taste, or experience touch. An example of that, this is old friend, and interesting case, that he had chronic migraines and he was working in the British Army just many years ago. And when he had his migraine, he told his troops he was commanding to just take a cup of tea, and he would go into the nearest dark place to actually calm himself down. He didn't know what meditation was. But because of his migraine, the only way he could get any relief was to go deep inside where he could not feel his body. And he told me one example of what happened. He was in this farm, the only dark farm, a barn on a farm, the only building which was nearby. He went inside and sat in the darkness, went inside to where he could not feel the migraine. And then from there, the rest of the soldiers, they got a message, put your cups of tea away now, we have to move. So they all got into their truck, and then they forgot about their commanding officer, so they went back again after 5 minutes. He was still sitting there in the barn, and they just picked him up and dumped him in the back of the truck, and he never knew anything about it until he opened his eyes and said, "What's happened? I was in a barn and now I'm in the truck." They described what had happened. When you're in these deep meditations, you can't feel the body. You can't hear sounds. In your deep meditation, soldiers who are not the most sensitive of people can pick you up and put you in the back of the truck, and the truck rumbles along the road and you don't hear a thing. That's the nature of these deep meditations. All you're really aware of is your mind, the citta. This has great benefits for your wisdom. Number one, you realize what the mind is, and it's independent of the 5 senses, which means, as the Buddha says, the next in Anapanasati, when you learn to explore impermanence in breath meditation, explore things fading away in breath meditation, explore things ceasing in breath meditation, when you learn to explore relinquishing things in breath meditation, on those occasions you are mindful of the mind objects, the Dhamma, the 4 satipatthana. And I've only got a few minutes here. So the simile which I'm going to bring up now is one of my favorites, which I invented to try and explain what is happening here, is that when a tadpole is born in the water and grows up in the water, there's no way the tadpole can ever know what the nature of water is. Probably doesn't even know it exists. But when the tadpole becomes a frog, and the first time in its life, when it grows the legs and the arms, and it jumps out of the lake, and it's sitting on the dry land, the frog will know that something is missing. Water. Now the frog can understand what water is. Something has disappeared. That is what anicca means. It's not rise and fall, up and down. Anicca means something which was always there, which you didn't notice, has now gone missing. It's uncertain, irregular, subject to disappearing. And this is the water that's gone. Now the frog can understand what water is, or what water was. When a person enters those jhanas, so many things are missing. Your body is missing. You're still aware, fully aware, and happy. And there's another time when your body will go missing, and that is when you die. And when you die, you know that this jitta will continue on for a while. Not forever, but will continue on for a while. It takes away, anyone who experiences a jhana will usually lose their fear of death. You understand what death is. It's just the five senses stopping, and with it the body. But the mind continues on for a while. That experience takes away a lot of fear and a lot of misunderstandings, which sometimes just ruin our life. And also, you just understand just it's anicca, it's impermanent, it fades away and it ceases in breath meditation. So many things disappear. And here you're getting some incredible insights into the nature of you and life. And what's the last one? And then, what was it? Ceasing and relinquishing. And you understand all these things happen by relinquishing, giving up, not doing things. For most of the great wisdom, happiness, and meaningful things which you've experienced in life, you've worked very hard for them. These things would happen after a jhana, or getting into a jhana. These things happen because you let go. You relinquished. You let go of control. You put down the cup. You were still. That's why those things occurred. And that gives you so much insight into the nature of this Dharma, of Buddhism. So this is where you get your wisdom from, your insight. You get huge experiences, powerful, powerful mind. And you always know when someone's had a jhana because they're walking on air, not literally, not levitating. They're so happy, so joyful, so peaceful. The five hindrances have disappeared. And if then you want to start doing things like what's my earliest memory, if then you want to start, one thing which happens naturally, I should have said this, one thing which happens naturally after one of these deep meditations, your body becomes very, very healthy. One deep meditation which I had when I had scrub typhus, had a fever for 4 weeks, no one knew what it was. And I'm pretty sure that I was overcome, the fever broke. And I was so tired, fed up, that I decided the only thing to do in this hospital in the northeast of Thailand was to meditate, to let go so deeply that you went into one of these deep meditation states. Couldn't feel my body, just blissed out. I came out afterwards, and I'm pretty sure that's when the recovery started happening, as it happens to many, many people at that stage. The health benefits of jhana are huge. The spiritual benefits are huge. And these are one of the reasons why we meditate. I know that some people say, Ajahn Brahm, you shouldn't teach people jhana. You get people disappointed if they can't do it. And I rebel against that. You will do it one day. Because you've heard how to do it. You had the instructions. And my answer always is, if you haven't yet, why not? So there we go. That's the sutta talk today, the Anapanasati Sutta, explained by Ajahn Brahm. You can read about that. That's in the suttas. I don't So change anything, I do add my explanations to it. I do change some of the translations, and I've got good grounds for that. But that's how Anapanasati works. And that's why I built Jhana Grove Meditation Retreat Center to invite all of you to come over there and just meditate to its very depth. Why sometimes people do come along and say they've developed a deep meditation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So anyway, now we can maybe try it. It's 4 o'clock. So I'm not quite sure who's going to finish the meditation, but I'll start the meditation for you. So sitting down. Again, make yourself comfortable. If you need to go to the toilet, please do so and you can come back afterwards. You close your eyes. How does your body feel? Relax it to the max until you feel delightfully sitting here. It's like a holiday. I call my classes in Australia Club Med, to get people to look at meditation as something so positive. And relax the body as much as you can. You create peace in your mind. You establish mindfulness. This is the most important thing, the comfort of the body and mindfulness, so you're aware of what's going on. All the thoughts and plans and memories, they are not important now. This is far more important. You stay in the present moment with how you feel. How do you feel now? And soon you'll become aware of your breathing. If you need to take time to settle your awareness on the breath, see its wonderful qualities by saying as you breathe in, breathing in peace. Breathe out, let go. And imagine peace. Imagine like a white dove, if you like, or quietness, silence. Imagine peace, love coming in with every in-breath. And imagine letting go of whatever is a problem in your body or mind, traveling out with every out-breath. Breathing in peace. Breathing out, let go. And if you follow the instructions, breathing in peace, you find the more you do this, the more peace you have inside. You breathe it in. If you follow the instructions, breathe out, let go. Many of the negative qualities inside are decreased. They go out with your breath. Breathing in peace. Breathe out, let go. Breathing in peace. Breathe out, let go. Breathing in peace. Breathe out, let go. If you get dull, you miss things, and just go back to your breath again, breathing in peace, breathe out, let go. Be patient. Don't try and ever go on to the next stage. Go into this stage. Always going in and inwards. If the meditation starts to work, and you get beautiful joy and happiness inside, that's what's supposed to happen. Just ride it like people ride the surf. Enjoy it to the max. It's totally safe. In fact, it's better than safe, has so many health benefits. and emotional benefits. Enjoy it to the max. I'm going to turn off now. See you in the evening.